Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Q&A with Dr. J. Dr. J. Dunn is the CEO and founder of My Happy Genes, the only genetic testing company that not only gives you your genetic profile, like 500 or more genes that are living inside of you, but combines that with your biochemistry to give you the kind of information that will make a difference in how you feel, whether you need healing mentally, emotionally, physically. It's the whole package. You don't have to guess. So, Dr. J, are you ready for the next question?
I am. I'm so excited.
Okay, good. So we're going to throw out a big sciencey word for everybody listening. Don't get scared. You don't have to be a science person to understand the answer. We're going to talk today about methylation. Anybody who has been interested in science, is a practitioner, or has a practitioner worked with you on methylation, you've read it in one of your healthy newsletters. It's not easy to understand, even though it's a common word these days. So I want you to explain it as though we were little kids. What is methylation and why is it important that we methylate?
As if we were little kids. Sometimes it's hard to go back to the beginning to get concepts like really basic, but I will attempt to do so.
Okay.
Because, as you mentioned, it's really important that people understand that our program really looks at the biochemistry that's going on in the body. And what is even biochemistry is probably a good question, a good place to start. So we have cells, we have all the cells that make up our body. Every one of them has organelles in them, little tiny organs that do things, and they're making energy, or they're making hormones, or they're detoxifying, or they're breaking down histamine, or all the little things that happen at the cellular level affect how we feel at a macro level or a whole body level. So we really kind of dig down deep into what's happening at the cellular level, what's happening with the little organelles. Are they doing the right job? Are they taking out the trash? And when we look at the genetic piece of that, we can see where, we've got a genetic variant in that area where they take out the trash, and it causes a buildup of toxins, et cetera, in our body. Or there's a genetic variant in our ability to make energy. Therefore, we're tired and we gain weight easily. So when it comes to methylation, that's just another biochemical pathway that happens at the cellular level. And we make these things called methyl groups. And, they're just little molecules that go around, and they have different functions in the body, one of which is to repair any damage that happens to our DNA. That's a biggie. It also is involved in how we make creatine, which is the basic fuel, if you will, of the brain and the muscles. So without creatine, we don't have a lot of brain energy or a lot of muscle energy. So it's kind of important there. And one of the other things it does is it regulates how some of our genes turn on or off. So we have all the genes in every cell of our body, and our body during certain circumstances says, turn on this gene or turn off this gene. So it's regulated by methylation, and methylation sort of covers the gene so it can't be affected by the environment or turned on by the environment. Maybe you know the concept of the genes load the gun and the environment pulls the trigger. And that's exactly what happens. But the environment can't pull the trigger if methylation is working correctly and keeping that gun basically under the covers. So it can't get to it. So it's one biochemical pathway that we look at. With My Happy Genes, we're looking at several genes that are associated with methylation, such as the one that converts folic acid into the active form, the mother flipper gene, and the one that activates B12, because those are the two ingredients you really need to create that methyl group, that little methyl molecule. And so there can be genetic variants in this. These are kind of circular pathways that intersect with each other. You can have genetic variants in those that'll interfere with our ability to make those methyl groups, and therefore it will have ramifications down the line, such as you won't detox correctly, you won't make energy correctly, you won't protect the environment from turning on genes. So hopefully, was that basic enough? Does that make some sense?
Yeah. I just have a follow-up question. So methylation goes on to protect us from the environment that might want to cause damage. So when we are properly methylating, bad things can't happen to good genes. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's a good way to say it. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So that, people talk about the BRCA gene and you're born with it. You're born with a variant there. Why don't you have breast cancer when you're born?
Right.
It gets somewhere along the line, the environment turns it on and it starts to express cancers. And that's true of a lot of, our genes is they're triggered by the environment, radiation, chemicals, pesticides, heavy metals, etc. But if you're methylated correctly, it'll keep that gene from being turned on by those things, and so it protects you from the environment turning them on. But the methyl groups do more things than that too. They actually help other pathways or help other genes work correctly. So, for instance, one of the molecules that's made through methylation is called SAMe, SAME.
Antidepressive.
Yeah,
It was recommended as an a natural over-the-counter kind of thing.
right. Another one of its functions, though, is to break down histamine. So those people that have genetic variants in the histamine pathway where they can't break down histamine, if we upregulate methylation and get more SAMe going, they can break down histamine and have less of an allergic response. It also upregulates one of the enzymes called the COMT that's involved in anxiety. So it helps break down the anxiety hormones like adrenaline. And so it helps in so many different ways in the body. It has so many different functions, methylation. And that's why we pay so much attention to it with the pathways that we're looking at with My Happy Genes and the genes that could be interfering with methylation. However, there are a lot of companies that are making the mistake of only paying attention to methylation, and that's a problem. Because once you turn on methylation, let's say you give somebody SAMe or you give somebody, the methylfolate or methylcobalamin, you just turned on detoxification, like you turned the dial. You just turned it on. And if their body's not ready for it, if their liver is not ready to take all the dumping that's going to happen at the cellular level, it can really cause a lot of side effects and symptoms like headaches and brain fog and leaky gut and digestive issues and just pain all over. We discovered that that's exactly what happens, and that happens with a lot of people that think they know a lot about methylation, or they think they know a lot about genetics, and they start giving because they see the MTHFR on their report, they go, oh, let's give this patient methylfolate. And it turns out that's a really terrible thing to do because you're not understanding what's happening downstream. All the things that we just mentioned that can be turned on by turning up methylation, you want to make sure that they're flowing well too. And so that's where we take into consideration, well, you have this gene and you have this gene and you have this gene variant. You have to look at the whole pathway all the way down and what's happening once you turn these pathways on, because there are repercussions down the line. And that's the difference. That's really the big difference between our company and a lot of other companies that are doing DNA testing and supplement recommendation.
Another good reason to get your gene testing done at My Happy Genes, which you can do by going to myhappygenes.com. Right there in the header, you can order your first report with a test kit. And if you have a question, meanwhile, we'd love you to send it. You can post it right here on the YouTube page or send it to us at info@myhappygenes.com. We'll be back with another question soon.